Is Bo off on a fire? So, Will, you going to ease our minds? For those of you who don't know, we've had Will here many times, and we get him back whenever we can. And because people just keep saying, when's Will coming back, to the people that get people here. So here he is, back by demand. And when I read the title today, I just thought, wow, this is going to be amazing. And it's just a delight to have you here. So please, Will Hornyak.
Thank you. How you doing?
Good.
Terrified? It's good to be here. I'm really honored to come, and I want to thank all the people that make this community so alive and vibrant. Everybody that, whatever, puts out chairs, the board that meets regularly to keep this community so strong. And I think we need community now more than ever. You know, I love the old saying, "You alone can do it, but you can't do it alone," right? And we do need one another. So the title today is Wisdom Keepers, the Importance of Elders in Times of Radical Change. And I use stories, traditional stories, myths, fables, fairy tales, and poems, because I think that stories carry the voices of ancestors and elders. You know, a lot of the old stories, they're like the condensed experience and wisdom of many people over hundreds of years, if not millennia. And I don't think stories necessarily solve problems by themselves, but I think they can provide a context for our issues and the crises that we undergo. Stories are always about how things change, about conflict, about difficulty, about how people either get through or don't get through crises. And so because of that, they can offer us some ideas and some strategies at times when we're going through crises and transitions. So that's what I'd like to do, is just share some stories. Because I think they are like elders. And the first one is one of the oldest stories that I know. It comes from India, which is a land made up of stories. And there was the god Shiva, the great dancer, incredible dancer, and a powerful, powerful god. But he had a devotee, somebody who was totally devoted to him, whose name was Bashmashur. You want to try that one? Bashmashur. And Bashmashur was a demon, right? Not a nice guy. But he totally dedicated himself to Shiva. He prayed to him. He prostrated himself for hundreds of years. You know, these are gods and goddesses and demons. And finally, he approached Shiva. And he said, I have devoted myself to you. I've done all these things on your behalf. And I ask you for one boon, for one gift, for one blessing. Well, you know, even Shiva, he's under the rules of karma. So he had to provide something. And so he said, yes, what is it that you'd like, Bashmashur? And Bashmashur said, I would like the power that you have in your finger to be able to create and to destroy. Well, Shiva thought about it, and he was under the rule of karma, so he said, I will grant you that, but you must use it wisely. Do you think Bashmashur used it wisely? Everybody knew what he was going to do. And he did exactly that. Whatever he pointed to with his finger, flames would emerge from it, and poof, like that, things would be destroyed. So immediately he went to all his enemies of the past, pointed his finger, and poof, they turned into flames. He went into the orchards of the gods and the goddesses and pointed, and things just exploded into fire. Everywhere he went, he destroyed. And what I love about this is an ancient story, but isn't it happening right now too? Mm-hmm. You know? And nobody knew what to do. Not even Shiva knew what to do. And so for a time, he did what he did when he was confused. He fasted for many days. He emptied himself of all thought, of all food. And then he went to the top of Mount Kailash, the tallest mountain, and he meditated for a long time. And then he noticed, looking way out at the oceans, there was something coming towards him, you know. And I love this part, because There was Shiva, there was Bhashmashur. He didn't know what to do, but there was a third thing that put in an appearance. And it was nothing more than a sea coconut, this huge sea coconut floating across the ocean. And it came to the beach, but it gave him an idea. And he went down and he took this massive coconut, and with his third eye, I love this part, he split the coconut. And opened it up. And then he kept thinking. Now, Shiva, he had necklaces of living snakes wrapped around him. And he took one of the snakes and he sacrificed it. He killed it. He took the skin of the snake, and part of the skin he wrapped over one of the coconuts, and the other he tied over the other end of the coconuts, and he made the first tabla drums. Right? And these are beautiful drums, and they say that one of the drums has the voice of the feminine, and the other the voice of the masculine. One is like the earth, one is like the sky. And it began to play these tabla drums, you know. And he became a master at this. He was a god. It didn't take him long. You know. And then he went back, and he showed this to his wife, Parvati, who was an exceptional dancer. And she heard the playing, and she said, I have an idea. We will have a feast. We'll have a great party. We'll invite everybody, including Bhashmashur. And they did. At their beautiful place beneath the foothills of Mount Kailash in this great wide open meadow, they had this great feast. They fed everybody came, and Bhashmashur was among them. People were terrified of him. But because he was with Shiva and Parvati, he was behaving himself. And finally, Parvati said, I want to show you what Shiva has created. And she unveiled these tabla drums, and he began to play, and people were just mesmerized. And then Parvati began to dance. And everybody was watching her. It was so graceful, so beautiful. And she said, as she was dancing, but who will dance with Parvati? Because, you know, a dancer without a partner, it's like the sun without the moon. It's like the earth without the sky. It's like the ocean without the shore. Who will dance with Parvati? Nobody would dance with Parvati, because nobody could dance with Parvati, except Bhashmashur. Oh, he said, I will dance with you, Parvati. He was so arrogant, he thought he could do this, you know. And she said, oh, yes, of course, you, Bhashmashur, only you could dance with Parvati. Only you have the grace. And sure enough, he came out onto the dance floor. And she said, now, Bhashmashur, please imitate my every move. You know? And she would dance this way and twirl, and he would kind of glump around, you know. She would bend down and lightly touch the ground, and he would slam it with his fingers and his hands, you know. She would leap, and he would kind of glump, and finally, as they were finishing, she said, and now the final move, Bhashmashur, you know. And she took this hand and pointed it like so, and she took her other hand and she pointed it to her head. And he did exactly the same. And just like that, Bhashmashur was destroyed by his own hand. And they say the winds of the world blew, and they carried what was left of Bhashmashur to the four corners of the earth. But they also say, but he'll be back in one form or another. It's a great story from India. Let's give the Indian culture a hand for that great piece of wisdom. Well, a couple ideas in that story that I like. One is that sometimes we don't know what to do because we can't sense it, we can't feel it, we can't see it yet. But one thing I like what Shiva does is he empties himself. He fasts. He sacrifices to some extent. He waits. And, you know, the old ones sometimes say, if you take one step deeper into the problem, if you take a step towards your own soul, if you take a step towards your greatest longing, something wakes up on the other side and takes 3 steps towards you. So the idea is that we're not alone. There are allies, seen and unseen, that are willing to assist us if we're willing to make that one move, take that first step. The other thing I think is that imagination is a resource. You know, we don't always know what to do, but imagination is very potent. When he sees the coconut, he gets an idea. He splits it. And then he gets another idea. And then he brings it home, and Parvati has an idea, right? This is the unfettered imagination at work, which is a resource that we have and need it now more than ever. And a third thing, I think, is that battling evil sometimes makes it stronger. But Parvati finds a way to let arrogance and evil destroy itself. And that, I think, is an act of imagination. And finally, you notice how important the drum is and the dance is, and that's something to remember. Dance, art, music, song changes the very atmosphere of the context of the problem. It doesn't necessarily solve it, but it creates an atmosphere in which it can be dressed in a different way. So, well, speaking of elders, I wanted to bring to mind an elder that I met who taught me a great deal. His name was Malidoma Some. He was an African man. Is anybody familiar with Malidoma Some? He's since passed on, but he was a tribal member of a tribe in Burkina Faso, Africa, the Dagara tribe. But he was a man with a foot in two worlds. He was educated at the Sorbonne in Paris, as well as with his tribe in Burkina Faso. He lived in the States for years. And when he was an older man, they asked him and his tribe if he would be willing to be an elder. You were asked to be an elder. They had a saying in that tribe, he said, that gray hairs don't make the elder. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're old, we can be wise. And I think the current administration is proving that. So they asked him to be an elder, and this is the process that they do in the Dagara tribe. If you're asked to be an elder, it's not the glory road that we think. If they ask you to be an elder and you say yes, they put you in a hut in the village and you stay there by yourself. And then everybody in the village comes and tells you exactly what they think of you. Okay? All the bad things you've done, all the ways that you've hurt them, and you can't say anything. You can't speak. You just have to listen. Right? You can't argue. You can't debate. And if you do, they pull you out of the hut and say, thanks for trying. So that's the first thing. Because you have to be aware as an elder of all that you've done, of all the harm you've created, of how people actually think about you. And then they also cover you in ash before they put you in there. The idea being that they want to make you humble. You are of the earth. Malidoma Some used to say, the elders in our tribe are known by their limp. And what he means by this is that they're no longer trying to hide the fact that they're imperfect. Right? You say, we know our elders by the limps they limp, by the wounds they carry, because that makes them vulnerable and available to other people. So rather than being perfect or always wise, the elders are quite imperfect, right? But they're vulnerable and they're experienced, and because of that, they're considered to be trustworthy. So that's part of how they come up with the elders in their tribe. Speaking of elders, one of the oldest elders that I know of is from a myth of the White Mountain Apache tribe. And they say in the White Mountain Apache tradition, there is a cave in the White Mountains. This would be present-day Arizona, but this is an ancient story. And they say in this cave, there is a woman they call Weaver Woman. And Weaver Woman is so old, and she's been weaving this tapestry forever. And they say without Weaver Woman weaving, there would be no trees growing, there would be no ripe corn, there would be no grasses of the earth. And she weaves all the time, this great beauty. But sometimes she has to get up from the weaving. And when she gets up from the weaving, she walks across her cave, and she has a cauldron there. And she's always cooking a stew. And they say without her stew, there would be no nourishment for body, for heart, for mind, or soul. But what happens is that when she leaves the weaving and walks across to tend to the cauldron, there's a black dog outside. And the black dog always knows when she's left the weaving. And the black dog steals into the cave and tears apart some of the weaving. And then she comes back and she sees the weaving frayed and torn. She goes, oh, that black dog. Ah, he's been at it again. Shoos him away. And then she sits down and she picks up the weaving. And she weaves life back into life, and she repairs it. And they say wherever she repairs the weaving, it's even more beautiful than it's ever been. And the White Mountain Apaches say, all praise to Weaver Woman, and some praise to the black dog too. Right? So I consider this an elder perspective. She sees the world with a darkened eye. She knows this kind of stuff is going to happen. Trouble happens, conflict happens, damage occurs. But she doesn't hesitate. She sits right back down and she picks up the weaving and weaves life back into life. And I say that because all of us are weavers. All of us have a tapestry of life that we're creating. And I think at times like this, when I believe the black dog is doing a lot of damage, it's more important than ever to not become overly frustrated or numb or withdraw completely, but to pick the weaving up and to keep weaving whatever thread you carry back into that weaving. It's more essential than ever. One of the ways I do that, one of the ways I stay sane, is having a practice of writing. So I write poetry, I learn stories, I tell stories, I visit a lot of communities and share stories. I find that our language is important. Our words are very, very important. And I think that our language, just the way our forests or land can, our language can be strip-mined. Our language can be clear-cut. Our language can be undermined, and we have to care for it. And there's certain terms that come along that really piss me off. And it inspired me to write a poem about that. I'd like to read it for you. It's called The Longing for AI, Authentic Intelligence. In these days of artificial intelligence, cryptocurrency, post-truth, alternative facts, unbridled arrogance and greed, I hunger for language wild as a wolf howl, sharp as an eagle claw, soft as eider down, crazy as coyote. I want the meat of authentic intelligence, of unprocessed imagination. I want a liquor distilled slowly from grief and hard-won joy. I want the currency of your word, the medicine that you alone carry, the healing balm that only you can dispense. I want to risk the condemnation of the high priests of reason, within me and without. I want to shake off these grave clothes of despair and dance like a dervish beneath the waxing moon. Recite poems, make prayers, babble beauty, tell the old stories and listen to the ancestors recall to us once again the ways of the living. Quote, the heart is an ark that can hold all creation. 2 loaves and fishes can feed multitudes. Magic is always afoot. A gesture can save a life. Unseen allies abound. Take 1 step toward your deepest longing, and the ancestors will take 3 steps towards you. And always make beauty. It gives evil one less place to hide. I understand its countless benefits, but my inner curmudgeon says artificial intelligence is an oxymoron. Yet another trick by Coyote, assuring us that we don't really need to change. Just leave it to me, he says. I've got this handled. And we should listen to Coyote, who is a great teacher and can always be trusted to show us precisely what not to do. The longing for authentic intelligence. Well, I don't know about you, but I do get afraid. I'm sort of conflict averse. I consider myself a peacemaker. But you have to deal with fear. And so I look for stories that provide some ideas of how to deal with fear, with panic, with the desire simply to run away. And there's a story, a little fable in Africa, in the savannas of Africa, where for millennia, lions have hunted gazelles. And the gazelles are a lot faster than the lions. It's really tough to take one down. But they've developed a strategy over years to be able to survive. And this is what they do. When lions spot a big herd of gazelles, the old lions, the old toothless ones, the ones that aren't so fast, the ones that can't hunt any longer, but they can still roar, they send the old lions away around the herd of gazelles. They send them off into the high brush or the high grasses, and that's where they stay. And then the younger lions, the swift ones, right, the ones with the sharp teeth, they heard the gazelles, they pushed them towards the high grasses. And as they near the high grasses, the old lions, they roar. And you know old lions, they can still roar, and that's what they do. They roar and they roar and they roar. And of course, in hearing this, the gazelles become terrified. They hear the roar, and I think that's where the danger is. And so what do? They turn around, and they go the other direction. They go away from the danger. They go away from the roar, and because of that, they're devoured by the younger lions. So in the savannah of Africa, they have this saying, go towards the roar. Go towards the fear. It's the only way that we develop the wherewithal, the cunning, the grits, and the gut, and the strength to deal with the issues that surround us. There's an old saying in Ireland among poets, false security is the only kind there is. Right? The only security we actually have is dealing with the issues that are before us. In that way, we develop the strategies to be able to move through them. So, well, I want to finish with a song that Maladomo Somé taught me. And it's really simple. And if you sing with me, the only two requirements are volume and enthusiasm. Okay? I'm half Irish, and the Irish believe that there are very few things that can't be improved with volume and enthusiasm. Okay? And beer. That's right. Well said. And fortunately, this song has only two words. Pura samane. You want to try that? Pura samane. And pura mamane. Pura mamane. And this is an honoring song of ancestors. Pura samane simply means honoring to all the male ancestors, right? To all the great-grandfathers and the grandfathers and all that have passed on to the other side. We honor them, we thank them for their blessings and their gifts. And it's also a way of asking them, could you give us some help now, right? Because in Africa, they believe that the ancestors are near, and we can call upon them for their assistance. And I believe that the stories that we tell, the poems we make, the songs, the music, are often old. They're often ancestors speaking to us, you know. So the song is very easy. I'd like to ask you, if you wouldn't mind, if those that are able, if you could stand, it makes it a little bit easier to get the word out. And just listen to me sing it through and then just join in. We'll just sing it through a few times. It goes like this. Pura samane, pura samane, pura samane o, pura samane o, and pura mamane. Pura mamane, pura mamane, pura mamane o, pura mamane o. To the grandfathers. Pura samane, pura samane, pura samane o, pura samane o. To the grandmothers. Pura mamane, pura mamane, pura mamane o, pura mamane o. And one more time, with all our voice, to all the ancestors on the male side. Pura samane. Pura samane, pura samane, pura samane o, pura samane o, pura mamane, pura mamane, pura mamane o, pura mamane o. Thank you. I'll finish with a very brief story. It's one of my favorites from the great Nez Perce tribe. Some of you might know it. They say long before there were two-legged people on the earth, there were the flying people, four-legged people, slithering people, crawling people. Theirs are the ones that that gave away all the ways of living. And they had to make an important decision a long time ago. They had to decide how long day was going to be. And of course, how long night was going to be. So they all got together, you know. And of course, the coyote people came. What do you think they sounded like, coyote people? A lot of coyote people here. Yeah. Right behind them, the mallard duck people came. You know. Very talkative people, the mallard duck people. Behind the duck people, the mole people came. Shh, very quiet people, the mole people. The first one to speak, of course, was Grizzly Bear. He was the first to speak because he was always first to speak. You know the type, right? And Grizzly Bear said, 6 months day. Yeah. 6 months night. Well, nobody really wanted 6 months a day and 6 months, but nobody really wanted to argue with Grizzly Bear. So you know how it is. Everybody sort of looked up and said, okay, I guess we could make that work, Mr. Bear. Compromise is the essence of community. Everybody said stuff like that. Everybody except for this one tiny little frog. I think the frog might have been a Unitarian. Because the frog looked up and just said, mm-mm. The frog looked at the bear. Can you imagine a frog looking up at a bear? And frog just said, 1 day, 1 night. 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 Bear looked around, finally looks down and 6 months day, 6 months night. Frog said, 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. Bear says, 6 months day, 6 months. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day. 6 months day, 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. 6 months day, 6 months. Night. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. Well, you know what finally happened? They kept arguing, and of course, Grizzly Bear did the only thing Grizzly Bear really knows how to do, which is to get louder and louder and louder. You know, 6 months day, 6 months night, 6 months. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. And he finally shouted so loud, 6 months day, and he shouted for so long, 6 months night. He finally, 6 months day. And Frog looked up and just said, 1 day, 1 night. Bear, of course, he lost his voice. He went off into the mountains and he slept for about 6 months. Frog kept speaking up, and ever since that day, every winter, Bear goes to sleep a long time. And all the rest of us, we just have 1 day, 1 night, 1 day, 1 night. And so the great Nez Perce, they say, you don't have to have a big voice to make a big difference. But you do have to speak up. Let's thank the great tribe, Nez Perce, for that story. Thank you, everybody. And we'll now have 3 minutes of silence, and then after that, questions, comments, responses.